Welcome to part 2 about the Roman Empire, and it's all about the money. This talks about the ancient Roman oligarchy, and this is part 2 that talks about conquerors, classes, and clients. The mindset of the Romans was one of conquerors. Conquer was a way to obtain lands, farms, huge farm estates, slaves, gold and silver, tax from conquered people, and control over your destiny. There was a cost. You had to have army, roads, ships, and human beings to do this. So what type of classes did they have in this Roman Empire? The Roman civil class were emperors, consuls and praetors, senators, equestrian, free men and women, freed men and women, that is, people who were slaves and freed, non-Romans such as Jews who had no protection, and slaves that were property. Now, if you look at the right, there's the two emperors that might have occurred during Paul's writing, and the Corinthian proconsul. You can notice that they all are wearing the wreaths of a conqueror. Well, Nero wasn't, as he never conquered anything. Well, let's go on. The conquering was important. You've seen pictures of the Roman fighting legions that were able to do close conquering fighting, and their shields, which became their way to protect against arrows. Now, let's look at what happened when they went to battle. The whole of civil society was based on it. You had an emperor, you had a consul who was a senior Roman magistrate, but he ruled senatorial provinces and appointed by the Senate, usually from the equestrian or the Senate class. You have the praetor, which was also a senior magistrate who ruled the Roman provinces and was a former legate. A legate was a member of the senatorial order who was in their 30s, who had 2 to 4 years of tours of duties. The quaestor was his aide-de-camp, or a junior magistrate, and he had a former broad-striped tribune. What does it mean to be a broad-striped tribune? It was someone who actually had spent 3 years on the battlefield. If you look at all of this, it was conquer and money. The people underneath that, from which it came, were either conscripted soldiers, such as a legionary, who then could become the standard bearer, which is honorable, a man who's the tesserarius, a man who circulated the tesserar wax lamp with the watchword to keep everyone safe, or an optio, which is someone who had risen to be able to be a deputy, sort of like a sergeant major. From this, you might have a decurion or centurion. Now, these are the working people that actually were then mustered out in Galatia or in Philippi or maybe in Thessalonica. The lictor is a centurion who then, once he retired, could be an attendant of a magistrate. You can see that all of this had to do with exactly how the citizens viewed their work together. There's also a sense of patron. You notice that the senators and the oligarchy of classes came from the beginning of the Roman Empire. And so the concept was the patron gives to the client money, employment, grain, tools, and the client reciprocation was an obligation to publicize the favor. Thank you so much, Mr. Patron, for this. Loyalty, and when the patron asked to perform services. Now, the client could also be a patron. Notice our set of patrons and peers. You have patrons who have clients, and then you might have a client who is connected to a lot of patrons who then has clients himself. This was called a mediator. If you see the mediator in our current English language, this is some of the background. Now, how would this work in the social order of a consul. A consul would have the emperor as a patron, and he would be a mediator to lictors, to his quaestors, to his tax collectors, to his tribunes, and in a dotted line to his legion. The Senate as a patron would also have a key senator or the consul family who helped him get elected to the consul. It was all about the web of relationships. Now, let's now relook at the social order of Lydia, who was the head of a household. And here a reaction to the Apostles Paul and Silas. Well, Lydia, as the head of her household, sold purple goods, which put her under the emperor, because the emperor controlled the sale of purple cloth. So he would be her patron. She might also be a client of a mediator who was head of the Purple Cloth Guild, who said, here's the contact in Philippi, we sent the goods along the Eglacian way. So that is, she might be under a patron who is a mediator. She also then recognized the Apostles Paul and Silas as a mediator, where they would be her patrons, which they would come to her house and stay. And that was pretty common in this web of patronages, to have the patron stay at a client's house, because that's returning the favor. But she saw the Apostles Paul and Silas as the client of the triune God as a patron. You see, she saw that in the social order, the true and highest patron that she wanted to be connected to was God. And of course, she said, if I am worthy, would you come stay at my house? She is seeing Apostles Paul and Silas as a patron. Now, because the patron had a great deal of influence on the client, you can see how Paul says, our true patron is God, our true Lord is God, but imitate us. And this type of imitation would have been common in that type of web of patronage. Well, thank you for listening again to Rome. It's all about the money. This is the second and final part of this set of videos. Thank you.